Hello, in this video I'll be guiding you through my complete process of creating this stunning visual for a forest cabin, starting in 3ds Max and finishing on Unreal Engine. I'll be covering everything, from setting up the model in 3ds Max, exporting and importing workflows, creating realistic materials, building an immersive landscape, setting up some cinematic lighting and cameras. After that, we're going to animate those cameras using the sequencer inside of Unreal Engine and render using the movie render queue. So, whether you are new to ArcViz or looking to refine your skills, this video has something for you. Let's dive right in.
Well, before jumping into 3ds Max, I just want to quickly introduce the project that we are working with and using as an inspiration. This is Le Refugee by Gate Rogers Architects. As we can see, the cabin is located in the middle of a nature environment, so we have this really nice minimalistic design with materials like charcoal colored wooden slats, some metal framings for the windows and doors, and it also has this outdoor deck area, a great spot for something like a fire pit or seating area. This combination of simple design and natural surrounding makes it a great reference for our visualization. Now let's get into 3ds Max and prepare the file for Unreal Engine. Before anything else, it's essential to set up the correct unit system in 3ds Max. Unreal Engine works with metric system, specifically using centimeters. So to avoid scale issues during the export and import process, we need to make sure that our 3ds Max units are set accordingly. Go to Customize, then Unit Setup, and switch to metric and centimeters. This ensures that all dimensions and scaling align properly between 3ds Max and Unreal Engine. Next, we need to ensure that all the geometry in our scene has proper UVW mapping. This step is crucial for texturing later in Unreal Engine to avoid any visible seams or misaligned textures. For elements like deckboards and facade wooden slats, I have separated them into different polygon groups. This allows us to apply randomized UVW mapping for a more natural look, adding some variation to the textures when we assign them an Unreal. Also, make sure to check the orientation of your UVs as well, especially on surfaces like walls, roofs, and ground planes. This guarantees that the textures will align correctly once imported. Overall, this step sets the foundation for achieving a realistic result in your file and render. Once we finish the UV mapping, it is time to prepare the materials for export. So Unreal Engine recognizes the 3ds Max physical materials, so we need to convert all the materials in the scene to this format. This step ensures the compatibility and avoids material issues when importing into Unreal. I have also applied the simple placeholder textures at this stage. These aren't just the final materials, but serve as a reference for Unreal Engine to detect the material slots during the import process. It is a straightforward step that saves us a lot of time when setting up materials later. So just repeat that same process for all of the geometry that we have, and it should be good to go. Finally, I want to talk about organization here. So organization is key for efficiency. I have arranged everything into different layers based on categories like deck, doors, windows, exterior walls, interior furnitures, interior walls, roof, stairs, terrain. This organization makes it much easier to manage the file, especially during the export process. When exporting the FBX, I'll group and export the layers separately. This not only helps with performance during the import into Unreal, but also reduces the risks of crashes if you have a more simple video card. With the scene prepared, the next step is exporting it into Unreal Engine as an FBX file. Instead of exporting everything at once, I recommend you breaking the model into multiple groups based on the layers that we created before. For example, I'll be selecting the geometry inside of our deck layer and select those and click File, Export, export as FBX. And then just find the folder to whatever you want to save it and name it. Make sure to name the name of the FBX file the same name as your layer. In this case, I'll be naming sm underscore deck underscore. This way we already know that this is a static mesh from the layer of deck. Yes. So this way we can keep track of what layer is our geometry and what is the object inside of that layer. These settings here should be fine. We can leave it as it is. Just make sure that you have that embed media ticked when exporting your mesh. This way we are going to import the materials, the textures that we have applied on 3ds Max before exporting into Unreal. And also make sure that you have centimeters here on the scale factor. This way we don't have any issues when we bring the geometry inside of Unreal Engine. So everything else you can leave it as it is and just click OK and we're good to go. And repeat the same process for every other layer. So now moving into the Unreal Engine, we can select this architecture preset here and just select the folder that you want to save the project. In this case, I'll be creating a folder in my desktop. We called UE5 cabin and the same name for the project, cabin. This template already comes with a few objects in our viewport, so we can get rid of something like the floor here, we don't need it. This player start, we don't need to. The camera, we can delete it too for now. We'll be moving now into importing the FBX files into Unreal Engine, starting by creating inside of Content Drawer the folders for each category of assets. And all of our static meshes are going to be imported inside of that folder. Now inside of our folder, you right click with the mouse and go to Import and select the folder that you exported the FBX files on 3ds Max. In this case, I'll export it in the Assets FBX cabin, and I'll be selecting one at a time so we don't experience any crashes while importing the geometries. Okay, inside of this window we can uncheck a few options as we are going to be doing just animation and not necessarily an interactive tour. So we can go over the settings here and just we don't need the LODs for now. We can untick that, untick the collisions. And also for now we don't need to bring the nanites. You can also untick the skeletal meshes as we don't have anything rigged inside of this model. And also we don't have any animated geometry here, so we can untick that. Just leave it as it is and hit import. Okay, so now as we can see, we have here our geometries, our static meshes, and it comes along with the materials that we had inside of 3ds Max. So we can just start by creating folders inside of our geometries folder and organizing the meshes as we had on 3ds Max layers. So I'm going to be naming this SM deck, and I'm just gonna drag and drop inside of our folder here. And basically I'm going to repeat the process here for all the other files that we have. Once the assets are imported and organized into folders, I drag and drop them into the level. And one thing here to mention is that we already have the correct position, the coordinates from 3ds Max embedded into the FBX file. So when you first drag a mesh into the viewport, it will appear randomly positioned. However, just to align it perfectly with the original location from the 3ds Max, you can just simply select the mesh and go into the details panel, and under the transformation section here, you just click the small arrow next to the position coordinates, and this will reset the mesh into the exact 3ds Max world position, ensuring that everything aligns perfectly without needing to be doing any manual adjustments. So in this case, I'm going to repeat the same process here for all the geometries that we imported. And as we can see, we have everything correctly positioned on our world. The final step in this part is organizing the outliner here. So similar to the content drawer, I create folders for each group of meshes and follow the same naming conventions as before. Keeping the outliner well organized is crucial for managing the scene effectively, especially as we add more elements into the viewport here. So this will help us find anything we need much more fast and easily. Next, I created materials for the cabin and terrain. For this, I built a few master materials, one for loading PBR material textures, another for materials like glass and metal, where I could control properties like color and roughness. From these, I created the material instances, which are more faster to tweak and apply. While this process involved many steps, it's too detailed to explain here, so I'll be creating a dedicated video on building master materials. For some of the materials inside of the cabin, I used the assets from Quixel Bridge, which offers a high quality photorealistic textures, and repeated the same process for everything that we have in our scene here. Now that the cabin is in place, it is time to bring the forest environment to life. So to start, I imported the vegetation assets from my pre-configured library, including trees, shrubs, and grass, all optimized for Unreal Engine. But it's not just about importing, the real magic happens when you start using the Foliage tool. First, I selected the Foliage tool from the top bar of the viewport. Then I dragged and dropped the assets from the content browser into the Foliage tool. This allows us to paint the assets directly onto the terrain, which is perfect for creating a more organic and natural looking scene. Next, I switched the paint tool and played around with the density settings. This is where you can control how thick and sparse your vegetation will be, which helps us make the forest more realistic. I then used the brush to paint vegetation all over the terrain, making sure to vary the placement for a more dynamic and natural feel. I repeated this process for other types of vegetation, such as grass, shrubs, and always carefully layering them to create depth and variety in the landscape. The result is an immersive, organic-looking forest environment that fits perfectly with the cabin. I intend to, in the future, create a video showcasing how you can import the assets from 3ds Max and set up the materials and organize them into a reusable library for future projects. This can save you a lot of time, especially when you're working on large scenes like this one. Lighting plays a crucial role in setting the mood of any scene, and for this project I wanted to create an atmosphere that felt both immersive and true to the reference images as I gathered down Arcdaily. So to do this, I used the Ultra Dynamic Sky, which is a powerful tool in Unreal Engine that gives me total control over the sky and lighting conditions. First, I set up the Ultra Dynamic Sky to create a foggy, overcast environment, which gives the scene that moody, atmospheric vibe. The beauty of this system is that I can quickly adjust parameters like the sun intensity, sky color, cloud coverage, all of which are key to bringing this scene to life. Once I had the sky set up, I used the post-process volume to add lens effects like vignette, bloom, and a bit of achromatic aberration. These small adjustments can make a huge difference in creating a more cinematic feel. To finish it off, I adjusted the exposure settings. This was crucial for balancing the lighting and ensuring that the scene was neither too dark or not overexposed. And this step is essential for giving your scene the professional cinematic quality. Now that the scene structure is in place, it is time to breathe life into it by adding some props. Props are more just than objects. They will help us tell the story of the space, giving it character and making it feel lived in. So I focused on the outdoor areas. I added a patio furniture around the fire pit, creating a cozy and inviting atmosphere. These small details give the scene personality and make it feel like a place people could actually inhabit. For a bit of storytelling flair, I included a vintage Mustang parked near the cabin. This prop not only adds a touch of nostalgia, but also suggests the presence of the cabin's owner or a visitor, sparking the curiosity about the story behind the scene. The car also serves as a great focal point, creating contrast and drawing attention to the environment. Now that the scene is shaping up nicely, it is time to start framing the shots to really bring the project to life. Setting up cinematic cameras is all about telling the story visually. I began by placing cameras in strategic positions to capture the cabin and its surroundings in most dynamic way. One key technique I used here is depth of field. Depth of field is a powerful tool for controlling where the viewer's eye is drawn. By focusing on the cabin and softly blurring the background, I can create a sense of depth and intimacy, helping the viewer feel like they are stepping into the scene. This effect not only draws the attention to the main subject, but it also adds a cinematic feel to the shots, making them feel more like a movie scene rather than just a static image. Now, composition is everything when setting up cameras. It is important to experiment different angles, focal lengths, and camera positions to find the perfect shot. Sometimes adjusting the focal length slightly can change the whole mood of a shot. In these types of scenes, it is essential to take your time with the camera placement. The goal here is to highlight the best features of the scene while also telling a compelling visual story. Before diving into the final render, I first animated the cameras using Unreal Sequencer tool. This tool gives you full control over animating actors in your scene, including cameras. To get started, I right-clicked on the Content Drawer folder and created a new sequencer. Once I double-clicked it, the sequencer tool opened and giving me the timeline where I could animate any actor in the scene. For camera animation, I simply select the camera actor I wanted to animate and set the keyframes to define its movement throughout the shot. I tested some different cinematic camera motions based on the compositions we explored earlier, adjusting the movement and framing to get the right feel for each shot. I repeated this process for each camera, creating a separate sequencer for each one, ensuring that each shot has its own unique sequence and flow. Once all the camera animations were complete, it was time to render out the scene. I used Unreal Engine's Movie Render Queue for this step, which is an incredibly powerful tool for producing high-quality renders. It allows us for precise control over the output settings, ensuring that you get the best possible result. For this particular project, I outputted the final render in 4K resolution to ensure the crisp, detailed visuals. Since I'm using the Lumen for real-time global illumination, I chose deferred rendering to take full advantage of its lighting capabilities. For anti-aliasing, I selected spatial sample counts to 1 and temporal sample counts to 16. This setting helped achieve a smoother, soft look on the edges, reducing the jagged lines and enhancing the motion blur effect, making the movement in the scene feel more natural and cinematic. I exported the image sequence as a EXR format, which is the best choice for post-production and color grading. EXR supports a wide dynamic range and high bit depth, ensuring that you can retain all the color and detail during the editing process.
And that's it! We have created this fully visualization of the forest cabin inside of Unreal Engine, creating realistic materials, lighting, and atmosphere. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you learned something or liked the content, please make sure to hit that like button as it helps the channel to grow. Oh, and also, feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions or suggestions for the next videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.